Chapter, and I'm going to be your host and your presenter for the evening. And I can see now that I think one of my colleagues has started recording that for me. Ella, can you just confirm that you've started recording?
Yeah, it looks like we're 19 seconds in to recording.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so everybody, thank you for joining us today. Now, this is actually a continuation of the webinar that we ran at the beginning of November called Getting Started with ClassFlow, and we just called that part 1. This is a continuation on that. If you weren't able to attend that one and haven't yet had a chance to listen to it, the recording is available on our YouTube channel. So if you just go to YouTube and type in Promethean UKI, that will take you to our channel, and you should be able to see that Getting Started with ClassFlow Part 1 there. Okay, I will refer to some of the stuff that I talked about in the first session. But as I said, this is kind of the next step to it. So if you did miss that, I would recommend that you go back and have a listen to the recording of the first part of this session. So just to start off with, I want to just remind everybody that during the session, I can see a couple of people saying no audio. I am on. Can other people hear me? We are using audio broadcast, and what that means is that if you want to ask questions, then you need to use the chat. We do ask people not to use the Q&A because it is very difficult. It's a little bit more complicated to manage. So if you could just use the chat. I do have a couple of my Promethean advocates that are on the call tonight, Anne Usher and Sarah Wright, who are going to be supporting me in the chat there and just picking up any questions and answering as we go along. I have opened up the chat for everybody, so you should all be able to view each other's chat as well, so to see the questions and the answers as they come in. If you do have something that you want to ask privately, please make sure that you select the option from the drop-down for all panelists, and that way both the advocates that are helping and also my colleague Ella Benison, she can also pick up on any questions or any problems that are going on. Okay, so if everybody's all right with that, then we're going to get started. Now, I've just closed that chat down because otherwise it takes up space on the screen. So please make sure that you select all panelists so that somebody else is able to pick it up. So for today's session, as I said, we're moving past that absolute beginning that we did in our last session. So in the last one, we really looked at how you can start using ClassFlow with no preparation at all. So we covered things like using the instant whiteboard, connecting students with an ad hoc session, so I don't have to prepare a class list in advance or register students in advance. We also looked at the marketplace and making use of content available on the marketplace that other people had created. So last session was really about getting started without having to do anything besides registering yourself for a ClassFlow account. Tonight, I'm going to be looking at how you can start to use ClassFlow with a little more preparation. So some of the questions were quite logical in their thinking that came out at the end of the last one, such as, what if I want to keep the data from the polls? What if I want to be able to look back and see what my pupils' answers were? You couldn't do that with the ad hoc class, but you will be able to do that after tonight when I show you how to create and manage your own classes. We're also going to have a look at some of the lesson creation basics. So I'm going to take you just through some of the basic tools and give you an idea of some of the things that you can do in creating a lesson. We're going to have a look at that activity builder and see how simple it is to create an activity and then also to include that into a lesson. And we're going to look at how we would deliver a lesson to the class. Now, I'm not going to actually connect students tonight. So nobody's going to connect to my lesson like we did the last time. So everybody can stay on the screen making sure that you can see everything. And then I'm also going to cover how you would review student data. So where is all of that data stored once it's been collected? So I'm just going to come out of this one, and I'm going to flip over to my classflow.co.uk account. Now, if you are an educator in the UK, this is the site that we do recommend you to use. If you teach outside of the UK, there are various language-specific sites as well. So if you're not sure which one you should be using, just get my email address at the end and send me an email, and I will help out with answering that as best as I can. Okay? So as I mentioned in the last session, what you need to do to get the most of ClassFlow, to use ClassFlow, and certainly for everything we're going to show tonight, is you need to get yourself an account. So you can sign up for a free account just by clicking on the blue button up here at the top right. If you were a previous Promethean Planet user, what they did when they merged Promethean Planet with Marketplace, all of the resource content, is they also merged over the account details from Promethean Planet to Marketplace. So if you did have a Promethean Planet login, then you can use that to log into your ClassFlow account. So what you need is the email that you registered with Promethean Planet, for Promethean Planet with, and the password that gets you onto Promethean Planet. Okay, so you can't use that to log in. I'm just going to click log in here. Now the other way that you can log in is to use online authentication. So if you have a Google account or a Microsoft 365 or a Facebook account, you can use these to create your ClassFlow account as well. Okay, so we do have online authentication as well. Now I just have mine so that it remembers my details by clicking that nice little remember me. So all I need to do is click that to log in, and it should log me right into my account. Now, one thing I just want to ask and see if I can get some feedback in the chat there is, when you have your student speaking to you, how do they address you? So you can see by default when I set up my account, I get the little message on here that says, "Hello, Janice." But in the UK, we tend to use our formal names, our surnames, when teachers are addressing students. So for example, they would call me Mrs. Pranstatter. So I wouldn't want "Hello, Janice" coming up on here for my students to see. I would want that to say "Hello, Pranstatter." So just going to take a quick look, and I can see some people chatting in there. I'm going to go with that. I don't think anybody answered that question, but that's okay. I'm going to go with that, and I'm going to show you how you would change this. So up at the top right-hand corner, you have a little avatar, and right now my little avatar just has a JP on it. So if I click on that, I can then go into my account. And I do suggest that people have a look at this when you first get started and go in and input some of this information. So this is my public profile. So if I was on Marketplace, this information is what people would see. So if I was sharing resources or buying resources, this is the information they would see. So I can have a public display name that's different from my first name and my surname if I want to. What I can also do is I can change my avatar, so I don't have to have that JP. If I press on that little picture image and select Choose Image, I can come in here and I have a library of little images I could use, or I could take a photo. You can see there, a little bit further down, hello. I could take a photo, and I can also upload a photo from my computer. I'm just going to choose this little kitty cat here and save my changes, and you'll see that my avatar has now changed. What I would want to do, as I said, is to change that so it doesn't give me the salutation as "Hello, Janice." I wanted to say "Hello, Mrs. Pranstatter." So for this, I'm going to go under My Account and click on Settings. And here, I can then type in Mrs. Pranstatter. Okay? And now I'm going to click Save. Now, sometimes what I have to do, I'm going to go back to the home page. It didn't pick up right away, but if I just reset that, sometimes it takes a minute or two for that change to take effect. And now you can see it's come up with "Hello, Mrs. Pranstatter." Okay, so again, if you want to change that, you just go up here into your avatar, and that will allow you to change that. Now, one of the other things that I want to show you how to get set up before we have a look at that lesson creation is how you create a class to use with ClassFlow. So for that, I'm going to go to the Classes tab here and click on that. you can see here all of the classes that I have already created down the side here. So to create a new class, I just want to click on the blue button at the top, add a class, and I need to give it a name. So I'm just going to call this one Webinar. That's the only information I have to give. If I want to, I could select the subject, and I could also select the year. Now, the other things, there are two different ways that I can create a class. So I can have what we call a student-generated class, or I could have a teacher-generated class. And you can see here, if I scroll down, it gives me just an idea of what the difference between those two are. So the big difference between the two is with a student account, my students would have their own ClassFlow accounts. We would be able to have class chat going, so that could be during a lesson when I'm presenting a lesson, but that could also be chat outside of the school environment. So maybe they're doing homework at home, so we have a post board where we could chat back and forth. And I can also create assignments for my students to do for learning outside of school or independent learning sessions as well. And you can see those options aren't available to me when I do it with a teacher-generated class. So we would always recommend this one, the student-generated, but I am going to talk about teacher-generated as well. So what I need to do is just choose and create. And you can see I've got some information here that tells me about how I would get my students connected to the lesson when I'm ready, using a browser on a device or using active expressions as well. And it gives me some other ideas of things that I can do with my class. If I want to add students, I just click on Add Students here, and then I purely type in my class list. Okay, so you can see I just type in the information, and let's get it right. Apparently I can't type and talk at the same time. There we go. And then I just save that, and you can see that that's now created a class for me. And I have my unique class code up here. So every class would have a different code. Okay, what I'm going to do, so that's how I create a teacher-generated. I'm just going to click on that, and I'm just going to delete that class. And we're going to have a look at that again, and this time I'm going to do a student-generated class. So I'm going to add a class, type in the name, and this time I'm going to choose student-generated. Okay, and again, this gives me information here to help my students get connected, as it does if I click on the little drop down here. This then gives the instructions. So this is my code, QQBHX. And what I would get my students to do on their devices is to go to the ClassFlow website. So this time we're using classflow.co.uk. And I would have them click on Sign Up for Free and sign up as a student. They would then need to put that code in, so QQBHX, if I remember correctly. Create a username, so you can decide on the convention that you want them to use. Okay, type in the first name and their last name. Email address is optional, so I always just leave that. And then they would need to create a password. Now you can help them with a password convention. It's also worth mentioning that in teacher accounts, you have the ability to reset a child's password. So if they happen to forget it, you do have the ability to reset it for them. And I just need to agree to the terms and conditions here and then sign up. Okay, and I've now created my account, and I can click on here. Oh, it took me out, and it should have redirected me. Here we go, slowly doing it, redirecting me into my student account. There we go. So you can see that this is a student account, and you can see here, there's my class that the student has joined. If I come back into my account here, and I'm just going to click off that one and come back on, because I want to show you I now have that class list. So you can see Anne has also joined my class, so I now have 2 students in my class. So that is the easiest way to get your students to register for ClassFlow, create their own accounts and join your class. Now do remember that this session is being recorded. I am going through things quite quickly, but we will share the recording afterwards so you can come back and view this at your leisure. I will also point you in the direction in the follow-up email after the session to some video tutorials for each of the things that I've covered tonight. So don't worry if you haven't quite got your head around it, because I went through that quite quickly. One last thing I want to show you with classes, because this is something that came as a question at the end of the last webinar, is if I go into my class list here for my Promethean class, which is a little bit larger, you can see here that I have a number of students in my class. And what I want to do is actually want to put these students in groups. So it might be that they're in ability groups or working groups. And what that enables me to do with a lesson is I can share particular cards with particular groups of students. So to do this, I just need to click on my class name, so I get the little settings cog here, and I'm going to click Add a Group. I then need to give my group a name, so we're going to call it, just do my math class, and I'm going to save that, and I want to give a subgroup. So my first subgroup is going to be squares, and then I want to add a student. So I just click here, and you can see it just takes the students off. I can see I've got those 3 students. I can add another group, and I'm going to call it circles, and this time I want to have Simon in there, but I want to have Janice. So I don't have to go in the order as well. I can pick in random order from there also. And once I have all my groups made, so let's do a third one and call them triangles. Here we go. And I'm going to add those last 3 students in there and click Save. I now have successfully created 3 math groups for my class. Okay. Right, I'm going to pause just for a second before I go on to the next part into Lesson Builder and just ask my helpers there if there are any questions that have come in that need answering. So I know that, hi Ella.
Hi, sorry Janice. Dean's asked, is there any integration of ClassFlow for existing classes in a student records database?
So not on the site that we're looking at here, the classflow.co.uk. On this one, there isn't an integration with school. I totally lost the word I was going to do. Systems there, like SIS systems. In the UK, this is the site that we're using. We're not actually selling ClassFlow for schools, but there is currently selling ClassFlow for schools, but there is the ability within there. So not on this site, unfortunately. You have to put your students in manually. Any other questions, Ella?
No, just asking about recording really, which after each of our webinars, we always place them on the YouTube site, and we'll send them out to you as well via email.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Right, if there's no more questions, I'm going to move on now to having a look at creating lessons. Okay, so to create a lesson, we want to go into My Resources here. And what I'm going to do is the tab up at the top here, I'm going to create a new lesson. Again, as a minimum, I have to give a title. So this one, I'm going to call it Jolly Phonics. And I'm just going to save that. Okay, this will then take me into Lesson Builder. So when you're in Lesson Builder, I've got a toolbar up here at the top that gives me all the tools that I need to create my lesson. So to start off with, you can see I've got my first card here, and right now it's just a blank card. I could just start adding information on here, or the other thing I can do is I could apply a theme to my cards. So when I do cards theme, you can see that I do have some preset themes available here, but you also have the ability to create your own custom themes. So if you have a particular template that you like to use for your lessons with your class, this would allow you to create your own theme and be able to have that applied to all of the cards in your lesson without having to constantly build them one at a time. I'm just going to use a theme for tonight, and I'm going to use this one down here called Bubbles, just to show you what it looks like, and I'm just going to apply that. So you can see once I've applied the theme, I then have my first card down at the bottom with my little theme attached to it. My main tools are here on my toolbar, and when I hover over top of anything with my mouse, you can see I do get that little tooltip to tell me what each of the tools are. So I can choose my text, just click on to open a text box on my page. I'm just going to keep it as the default font type, but I'm going to change the size, and I just want to type in the name of my lesson. So we're going to do that. I can increase the text box, so if I want to fix that, I could also justify it, center justify if I wanted. And what I can do is once it's on there, if I click it, you can see that I have edit handles similar to what you have in Active Inspire. So I can edit that object that I put on my page. I can pick that object up and move it. When I pick it up and move it, you'll also notice that get the red justification lines that show up. So these lines show me where it's centered on my page, and it also, when I have other pieces of text, it would align it with other text on the page as well. So I'm just going to drop that up there. Now, I also have the ability to put shapes on the page. So I'm just going to have a blue to go with my theme. I can change the transparency of that shape, and I'm just going to choose a square, and I'm going to draw that on there. Okay, just like Active Inspire, I can change the layer of that. So you can see when I have an object selected, I get a little cog up here, which is Settings cog. So I can click on that, and there are various things that I can do with that particular object. So what I want to do is just reorder that, and I want to send that shape to the back so that it sits nicely behind my title. And then if I wanted to, I could just pick that shape up and move it around so it sits nicely behind there. So I have the first page of my lesson done. To add a new page into my lesson, there's a couple ways that I can do that. So the first way is if I hover over top of a card in the carousel. So this is the carousel where all of my cards would go when I've created them. I get the cog up here, and again, I can click on that to find out how I can edit this particular area. So I can do things like change the background. I could change the background color or apply a picture behind that if I wasn't using a template. I can duplicate that one. I can hide the card in the carousel if I want. I can put card notes on it, various things here, add questions. But what I want to do is this one here, add a card, because I would just want to get another card into my lesson. And as you see there, it puts another card just in my carousel underneath, and then I can start to edit this one. So maybe for this one, I want to put a graphic on there. So I can go up to Insert, and when I do that, it takes me into my File menu. And in this case, I've got some resources saved on my computer. So what I can do is, as I'm building my lesson, I can click Upload a new resource, which will take me into the hard drive of my computer. I can locate where I have those images saved and choose the one that I want. So I can say I'd like this one here, and I'm going to take that, open that. It now uploads that, and it will save that file into my resources. So I only have to bring it into ClassFlow once, and then I can use it again and again for building my lessons. And I want to insert that onto the page. Once it's on there, again, it's an object that I can pick up and move. Now, I just saw chat pop in there. Can I get that from Google Drive? Yes, you can upload resources from Google Drive, but you can't do that in Builder. You have to do that back in My Resources. So I'll point that out to you once we come back to My Resources, where the link to Google Drive is. But yes, you can get resources from Google Drive into ClassFlow as well. Okay, so I'm just going to place that on my page. Now, what I could also do with that is, if I click on here, I want to anchor that so that it doesn't move if I'm interacting with the screen. I'm just going to click on the actions there, and I have the option to anchor, and I'm going to save that. And now you'll see when I select that, the little handles are pink, and that tells me that that object, that particular object, is anchored onto this card. Okay, the other way that I can add a card into my lesson is with this little plus at the bottom. Now, what's nice about using this one is that I have different designs of cards, and the theme will change depending on the design of card that I use. So I'm just going to choose this one here. Okay, and in this case, it gives me my little text box that I can click on it, and everything's set up for me just to add my text in. So continuing on with my little phonics lesson, I am going to put in the text. Now I'm using a jolly phonics scheme that my little child is starting to use in school right now. He's just started primary 1. So some of you might recognize this. And I will get my class to practice this. That's the intention with this card. But I might also want to have a sound file. So if I go up to Insert, I don't just have to be able to add pictures and text onto a card. I can add other file types and documents and things as well onto a card. So if I just go into my Jolly Phonics here, because I'm in my resources, I've got a sound file here. And I'm just going to insert that onto my card. And you can see that it's put this little sound file up at the top here, a little player. I'm going to move that down here. If I wanted to, I can make that slightly larger as well. Now, I can't listen to the sound here, but if I preview, and I don't think you guys are going to hear the sound because I have a headset plugged in today, but if I clicked on that, that would then play the sound for my class. So you can see it playing there. And basically, the sound file is just repeating what I've typed above. Okay, so you can embed sound files onto a card. You can embed video onto a card. I can also embed documents. So again, if I add another page on here, I'm just going to add a blank one and go up to my Insert menu. I could locate I don't think I've got one actually, a PDF or a website or something, and I could embed that onto a card as well. You can also embed PowerPoint presentations. Now, PowerPoint presentations work really nicely when you embed them using an embed code. And most of these online file sharing sites, such as OneDrive and Google Docs, putting a PowerPoint on there, you can grab an embed code, which you can then use to embed onto a card so that the PowerPoint would play as a live PowerPoint presentation right on that card, meaning that you don't have to flip between windows, different locations. All of your resources are there in one easy location. What I can also do is, you can see I can search in different areas for resources to put on to my card as well. So I could do a Bing image search and find images right from there. Or I could do a web page and create a web page link onto it. I can also do YouTube videos. So I'm just going to click on YouTube video, and I'm going to do a search for Jolly Phonics S. And you can see that it comes up with some options right here. So I'm going to choose this one. I know it's the one that I want. So I'm going to click on it and insert that onto my page. And right away, I've got that little video inserted onto my page using the embed code. And if I preview that again and play that, again, you won't hear the sound, but just to show you that that video plays embedded onto my card. And when I have that in full screen and my carousel hid, looks quite nice up there. Okay, I'm just going to minimize that again, bring my tools back, and I can pause that video and I can alter the sound as well here. And I can also have that to play in full screen and come back down if I want to. I'm going to come out of that. So I can embed YouTube videos very easily onto my cards as well. Okay, so lots of different ways that I can add content onto the card. And what ClassFlow means is that I don't have to create everything new on the individual cards. I can bring in resources that I'm already using in my class that still work very, very well, but bring them into an easy location to come back to. Now, as I'm creating in Builder, you might have noticed up here at the top, it is constantly saving my content. So it's telling me that all changes I've made so far are saved. So I can rest assured that when I come out of this, all of my content is still saved. Okay, so I'm going to exit that for a minute and come back into my resources. So just before I go on to the activities, can I ask Ella, are there any questions that haven't already been answered?
Yes, one question. Can you show the embed of PowerPoint A?
The embed of PowerPoint A.
I think A might be an error. I think it's a PowerPoint. I think the embedding of PowerPoint within the ClassFlow lesson.
Do you know,
maybe.
What I will do is I'm not going to show that tonight because I'll need to get into my OneDrive and get a file with the embed code. But I have very handily created a little video that is on our YouTube channel that shows you how to do that. So what I'll make sure is that we have a link to that little video in the follow-up email that we send out after today.
Great, thank you. And you can insert sound files, can't you? But it's asking, can you insert sound from websites? I would imagine you'd have to download it and store it.
So what I used was an MP3 file that I found on the internet and I downloaded.
Yeah.
If you're on a website that has sound and you embed the website in a card, it will play that sound.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, and I just saw, yeah, I just saw that one. No, you aren't able to, not in the in this site, the classflow.co.uk.
Which question's that?
Sorry, that was the one about the CSV files uploading students. Yeah.
Can you upload classes? Yeah, using spreadsheet or CSV. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right. So, last little part before we finish off. I won't keep you much longer, I promise. I just wanted to cover that activities. So if I go into new here, and you can see all the different new things that I can create, okay? So this is where I would create anything, and we're only focusing on lessons and the activities really today. I don't have to create all my lessons from scratch though, so if you look down at the bottom, I can convert PowerPoints or flip charts or smart notebook files. So if you have lessons in these file types already, you can convert them into a ClassFlow lesson and then just go back and tweak them and make small changes so that they work the way you want them to in ClassFlow using the features of ClassFlow. But the one other thing I want to cover is this one about activities. So we've got this nice little activity builder here, and you can see that there's 7 different types of activities that you can build. So if I just choose, say, the word search here, again, I need to give it a title, so we'll call it we're just going to call it S, sound, spell it right, sound, and I'm going to click done to see that. And then it takes me into my builder. And it's so easy to build because all I need to do is type in some S words in this case. So I want my students are going to look through the crossword, the word search, the crossword, no, word search, sorry, I got it right, word search to find some words. So snake. Can I think of any words that begin with S? Here, we'll do a couple there. Okay, so I can keep creating my words. I can change the theme. It tells me how many items to display, so I could add some more in there. And then, not a very good word search, but let's have a look at my preview. You can see here, it's created. So it has the words they need to find, and then they can look through here to find them, and they would just run their mouse or their finger over top of them to select them, and it scores that out in there to say that they found it. Okay? So lesson activity builder is brilliant and really easy to use, but what I wanted to show you tonight is how do I get that activity into my lesson. So I'm going to go back into my lesson. So I'm going to select it and click Edit Lessons. And I'm going to come down here and I want to add another card. So I'll just do a blank one, and I'm going to insert again, and you can see now that that activity that I created is right there, and I'm just going to insert that activity. And you can see that it's now put that activity, actually it's put it further up. I must have had another in a different location. It's put it up here, and you can see that that activity is now part of my lesson. Okay? Right. Last thing that I just wanted to mention about lessons today is once I have my lesson, how do I then deliver that to my class? So last webinar, I showed you how I come into my resources and find the lesson I want, and then I want to click the blue Deliver button. When I do that, it then shows me I could deliver it to the ad hoc sessions. That's what we did last time. Or I could deliver it to one of my classes. So you can see my classes listed down here, and you can see the webinar class, the one that I created today. So what I would do is select the class that I want, and then I would have my students join that. Okay, so my instructions there for joining in my class. So that's how I would get my students to join a class as opposed to an ad hoc session. We'll come out of that. So the last thing I just want to cover is when I do the polls, when I do the assessments, where is all that data saved? So if we come back over to our classes here and we look down the list, if I click on one of them, I'm just going to go into my math class down here. You can see underneath it that it will list any lessons that I've delivered. So I can see these are all the lessons that I delivered to my math class, and you can see some information on when I delivered them and some information around them. This one would be any polls that I delivered with my class. So these are any of those ad hoc polls that I do in the middle of the lesson, so not ones that I've had to preset to a card. I can also see any assignments that I delivered to them. So you can see there's one that I've done to my math class here, and you can see it's due in 6 months. It was due 6 months ago, so I need to update that one. And I can also see any assessments as well. So all of that data, that interaction with that lesson that my students have is saved back here under my classes for me to be able to come back and look at and use at a later time. Okay, so I think that brings us just about to the end of the webinar. I'm just going to get Ella to pop back on there again and ask her if there were any questions there that need answering.
Yeah, quite a few, but it's quite difficult to get around them all. Could you please show us add questions and lesson properties functions? Have you got time for that today?
So I'm not going to go into adding lessons, add questions. What I will do is if I come in and we go to our edit lesson here, you can add questions onto cards by using the question builder here. Okay, so once I do that, it then shows me my cards and I have the lesson builder. We will be doing other webinars that cover specific aspects of it, so we will do some stuff around this. But what you can do if you're keen to get started with it is once you go into Assessment Builder, I've got the little help files here. Remember, you can always use the help files here that will talk you through how to use Lesson Builder. Okay, what was the other one there, Ella?
Yeah, can you give some examples using ClassFlow for university and high school students, which I'm thinking, would they be in Marketplace?
You could have a look in Marketplace. Yes, there is content on there. Basically, ClassFlow is a tool to help you pull together what you need to create the lesson to use with your learners. So that's a bit of a difficult question because the content is down to what you put in it. So all ClassFlow does is pull together all of those pieces of content, hold those pieces of content into one area. So I chose for this one to do a primary topic using Jolly Phonics. But if you were in a college environment or a high school environment, the content that you create on the cards would just be relevant to the age of learners that you're teaching. Are there any other questions, Ella?
Nope, I think you've covered everything there. There's some nice comments coming in as well. I love this activity builder, the Chantel.
Yes, it's brilliant.
Thank you very much.
We do have a copy of the chat, so what I will do after, as I always do with webinars, I will have a look back through to any questions that come up, and I'll make sure that I share the answers to those questions as well. So just to finish off, I want to remind you that all of our sessions are recorded, so this includes all of our ClassFlow ones that we've started to do, plus all of the ones that we've done in previous years on Active Inspire, if you are still using Active Inspire. And you can view them on our YouTube channel, where you just search for Promethean UKI on YouTube channel, and that will show you our playlist. There's also built-in video support, and on any ClassFlow page that I'm at, I can have a look up here, click on that little arrow, and it will show me support that has to do with particular areas of ClassFlow that I'm in. You also have the help button here, the help pages, and the support website available to you as well. In the site over here, you also have interactive help. So we do have a team who are working during business hours where I can ask a question, I can start a conversation and get an answer in real time as well, or they will email you also. Okay, so we do have lots of support to get you started. As I said, we will have a follow-up email afterwards, so I'll make sure that we give you links to some of the relevant video tutorials to help you with the things that I've covered in the session tonight. We also do have a website for support with ClassFlow, getting ideas around using ClassFlow, and so that's our resource.classflow.co.uk. And as I promised, my email address here, if you do have any specific questions, or for those people who are looking for a certificate for tonight's session, please send me an email and I will make sure that I get in contact with you. If there aren't any more questions, I think that we'll finish up for the evening. Ella?
Thank you, Janice. Thanks for your time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Ella, if you could stop that recording for me as well, that would be brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. I hope you found the session useful.
Thanks, everybody. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.